Aris stood at the edge of the driveway, his fingers gripping the handle of his small star-patterned suitcase. Behind him, the car was ready to leave, and in front of him stood a house that didn't smell like his home yet. His tummy felt like it was full of tiny, fluttering moths, all bumping into each other. Then, the front door creaked open and Grandma Amity stepped out. She didn't just walk, she did a little twirl and held her arms out wide. Aris took a deep breath and ran into her hug, which felt like a warm, toasted marshmallow and smelled like lavender. "I have a special mission for you," Amity whispered as they walked inside. She led him to a hallway filled with strange, beautiful things, where they opened a dusty wooden trunk labeled for brave explorers, only pulling out golden capes and shimmering crowns that caught the light. In the kitchen, the air turned sweet and warm. Aris stood on a chair, his face dusted with white flour as he pressed his thumb into the center of a dozen jam cookies. He was the head baker of the house, and for a moment, he forgot all about the fluttering moths in his tummy. As the shadows grew long outside, they curled up by the fireplace. Amity opened a giant book and read about a little dragon who was afraid of the dark, until he realized the moon was just a giant nightlight. Aris listened to her steady voice, feeling the heat of the fire on his toes. Soon, it was time for the great sparkle up. In the bathroom, Aris climbed his stool and brushed his teeth until they shone like polished silver. He used his peppermint toothpaste from home, and the familiar taste made the new bathroom feel much friendlier. But when he climbed into the big guest bed, the room felt very quiet. Aris clutched his stuffed bear and looked at the curtains, which swayed like tall giants in the moonlight. He missed the sounds of his own house, and his heart began to hammer like a tiny drum. Then the door opened just a crack, letting in a sliver of golden light. Amity walked in carrying a small glass jar filled with tiny glowing fairy lights. She placed it on the nightstand, and the room was suddenly filled with dancing fireflies that chased the shadows away. The next morning, the sun was bright and the birds were singing in the garden. Aris sat at the kitchen table, eating a giant plate of waffles with extra syrups. He looked at Amity and smiled, knowing he had conquered the night and was ready for his next adventure.